Well, you've heard we got 30, 40 million people on unemployment, but now it's going down. People are going back to work. Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? And who knows how long it's going to last or whatever. But anyway, the problem is now the current, unemployment, particularly the COVID unemployment insurance that they have now, you make so much money. People are making more money on that than their regular job. So if you get called back to work, you say, gosh, do I make more money doing nothing? Why would I want to go back? But you have to. Maybe. Okay. The real answer to that is maybe, because sometimes you don't have to, and that's what I want to tell you about. There are reasons, and it's usually health related, or they change the job and something like that. Well, here's a great article on CNBC, the news people, the cable news people. Can you refuse to go back to work and still claim unemployment benefits? It's a great article because here, I'm going to read you some of it here. As businesses reopen, they must follow guidelines from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention intended to protect employees. See? So this is your out. You want to stay home. So they have to follow guidelines to protect you. Employers have the baseline responsibility of providing proper hand washing stations, additional sanitation, and personal protective equipment. Remember those PPEs, such as masks and gloves, and following social distancing recommendations. Okay. Certain states may also have more rigorous standards on top of the federal guidelines, such as reducing workplace capacity and requiring temperature checks of the employees. Right? They're going to take your temperature. Oh, it's not a rectal thermometer, right? That'd be a little embarrassing going to work. Okay, so employers who follow federal, state, and local safety measures can call employees back to their jobs and will be recognized as providing suitable work. Okay, that's it. So you have to go back if you got suitable work. See, you don't have to be looking for a job, but if your employers calls you back, you have to be. Workers cannot refuse a suitable work and get any kind of employment benefits, says the senior analyst at the National Employment Law Project. I talked about them before. They're a nonprofit organization, good people, good data, whatever. They also can remain on unemployment simply because benefits pay. They also can't remain on unemployment because your benefits pay more than returning to work. So that's a no-no. But the Department of Labor and Employment Training Administration additionally makes clear that a general fear and exposure to the virus isn't enough to refuse work, either to refuse a job. But if your employer isn't providing safe working conditions, okay, how do you determine that? Okay, yeah, this gets a little more complicated, but if it's there, you could run with that and find out. If someone believes their employer isn't putting in effort to provide safe working environment, workers can argue that the conditions are no longer safe and try to refuse work in the first place instead of going in. See? So if you don't think they're safe, you may have a thing here. And she adds the Law Project, this is the woman from the National Employment Law Project, has submitted proposals to the Department of Labor asking for guidance to determine that. So they have a letter into the National Department of Labor that, so may have to wait a little bit more on that, okay? We anticipate it'll come out more clear, with more clarity that will help workers to be able to return only when it's safe. So they're looking for more requirements. So keep an eye on that, okay? An employer must follow the safety guidelines of OSHA. Remember OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So they also have to follow those guidelines besides the CDC, okay, which predates the pandemic and outlines a worker's right to refuse dangerous work. So you have another right there under OSHA that you could refuse dangerous work. If companies fail to follow those guidelines and creates a hazardous working condition, workers may be able to quit with good cause. If that's found that a worker has left an employer due to unsafe working conditions, they may be able to claim unemployment benefits. Many states have this stipulation in their unemployment insurance statutes. Evermore says and that's the woman lawyer. So workers should be able to find out more information from their state Department of Labor. Okay, so you go to your state Department of Labor. I have a listing. I just went and looked. The National Department of Labor has a listing. Oh, here it is. So if you put in a U.S. Department of Labor and you're looking for state labor offices, you'll find for every state, and you have the labor department for that state. Okay, so that's a possibility. So you want to get the facts. Just don't, somebody else worked there, and you say, you can't take hearsay. You can't take what even experts say or lawyer. You want to get it from the horse's mouth, and it's the government who writes the laws. So you find out there. If companies fail to follow these guidelines, and this creates a hazardous working condition, or workers may be able to quit with good cause if it's found that the worker has left the employer due to unsafe working condition. Under OSHA guidelines, they may be able to complain unemployment claim. Okay, I said that already. In order to show good cause for quitting, workers will have to document specific reasons their workplace presents hazardous environment and notify their employer of the need to eliminate the danger. If their employer doesn't take action, the worker may file a formal complaint with OSHA. Okay, and OSHA approved workplace safety programs vary by state. So again, you go to the state. Now you have another way, though, out of this, where you can stay and sit on your butt and collect more than working, which sounds boring to me, but you know what I mean. If your employer makes drastic changes to your job without your agreement. Okay, you had one job, everything was okay. You went home and all this stuff happened, and now they're coming back, but bringing you back, and it's not the same job. You may also be able to turn down the work and continue to qualify unemployment if your employer drastically changes the way you do your job. This might include a drastic pay cut, permanent changes to your assigned shift without your agreement, or moving you to a facility that will require a substantially longer commute. Hey, that may be happening. For example, in Iowa, a pay cut of 25 or 30% may justify a worker collecting unemployment if they choose to quit. But that doesn't, but what's considered a substantial wage change varies on a case by state basis. So what is a lot? It varies by state, is what's saying. Small changes, however, like adding an extra hour to your shift or moving you to a different part of the facility, won't count as unsuitable work conditions. It's unclear whether tipped workers, like those in the food service industry who come back to work with the same base pay but receive far less tips due to the decreased foot traffic, will be able to argue that their pay has been cut. If your employer's direct wages plus your earned tips add up to less the federal minimum wage in your state, your employer must make up the difference. So you have an argument there, and it sounds like no matter what you're making, you have to make at least minimum wage, and your employer has to make that up. So here's the article here. Can you refuse to go back to work and still claim unemployment? By CNBC.com. Okay. Where's the rest of this stuff? It snuck away on me. Oh, I know. Here's the NELP. That's the National Labor People, who are really National Employment Law Project. They have, oh, I already read that one. That's in there. Okay. So we're all set up for that. And they're working on something else. So it's go to your state labor office, and they will tell you what the businesses have to do in your state. So you start with that and see. And then if you still feel screwed up, and then you talk to them directly. But the state labor people, start with that. Don't go to your boss yet, because of course he thinks he's doing everything right. So you got to go around that. So how do you find around that? Okay, you get some legal advice. How do you get legal advice for free? Funny you'd ask. Here's what you do. You put Justia, Justia, then your state, and then free and low-cost legal help. Justia. That's the name of a collection of legal help website. And it's a .com, but as long as you put free. And here it is. I put in Maryland. and what you get. So you get all the pro bono and the legal aid services or whatever for that state. And that's where you want to check. And if you get through the legal aid, they're usually good at something like this, and they're free. To find out. There's a Women's Law Center, House of Ruth Domestic Violence Legal Clinic. So there's a lot of good legal clinics around that you could get some good legal help. Okay. So that's it. So you may be able to make more money sitting at home than you are if they called you back to your job. See, it's crazy time out there. Who would have thought?